Welcome to Almost Here, Round the Corner Future Technology podcasts with Richard Jacobs. Future technologies poised to transform our lives for better or worse are the focus of this podcast. Almost here means these technologies are now here and starting to be used, or just around the corner, from Bitcoin to artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Future Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Juliette Lamar, and joining us today is Scott Nelson. He is the CEO and Chairman at Sweetbridge. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you, Juliette.
So, Scott, why don't you go ahead and kick us off by letting our listeners in on what Sweetbridge is and what you do there?
Sure. We do two kind of very basic things, but that a lot of people aren't familiar with. One is that we do asset-based lending in commerce. This would be any kind of asset from raw materials to finished goods to commodities that would exist in the process known as a supply chain, which is commerce. $54 trillion worth of GDP. So it's all the goods that we buy and use, for everything from sustaining ourselves through food to, new cars or vehicles that we are going to drive in ourselves. And the other thing that we do is we provide a loyalty system for companies and their supply chains for adopting our system. And that loyalty system extends all the way out to consumers, and consumers get cash back. But we're all familiar with cash back being like, 1% or 2%, maybe 5% on a credit card. This is cash back up to 100%. If you have enough loyalty points and, you don't spend too much. So it's a very unusual loyalty program. Yep.
Yeah. I was just saying that's very unusual and really, really wide reaching. I mean, you cover a lot of different bases here.
A lot of bases. So we have, kind of three target markets. We have the people that are channel masters. These are the network hubs. If you meshed out how all the trade goods in the world flow, you'd find that there are these hubs, these organizations that represent massive connections with large numbers of customers and a very large number of suppliers. And so we have products that are targeted specifically to those organizations that help improve their bottom line and also help them improve the veracity, the honesty of their supply chains, transparency, provenance, that kind of stuff. And then we have products that are designed for just individuals that buy things or companies that buy things, which is the loyalty program and the financing of anything that you have that's an asset. So things like everything from homes to vehicles to gold or stocks and bonds you might be invested in as an individual, or inventory and receivables as a company, maybe equipment. And all of these things, we can help you get liquidity for them. And then finally, we help companies that sell things to create loyalty with their customer base, where they get their customer base to help fund their growth, their company, in exchange for giving them discounts via cash back on purchases in the future.
And you have a wallet as well. You have a lot of different things on your platform here. I guess what kind of caught my eye was, unlocking money from the assets that you already own. Right.
So today there's 700, let's exclude currency because we don't think of that as assets, although it is. Let's just say 630 trillion assets in the world. Those are valued assets that have a market, have a value on them. And most of those assets, if you owned them and you wanted to get a loan, you wouldn't be able to get a reasonable priced loan in most places in the world, even in major countries like the United States or European countries. It'd just be too expensive. So we want to unlock that value. It's a tremendous amount of the world's wealth that's tied up in that at any given time. We want to unlock that value and allow people to gain access to it at really low cost of interest rates that would be half to a quarter what people would actually see today in the world out there. And then we use a loyalty system to actually allow you to reduce or buy down your interest rate. In fact, you can buy your interest rate down to zero unlike buying down an interest rate on a mortgage or something where you'd have to pay the money up front and then you basically lose it, you actually do this by buying an asset, which you can trade with other people when you don't need it anymore, and they can use it to buy down their interest. So it's pretty cool.
That's a very great system.
Well, it's part of the big, news bit about, this whole blockchain thing. A lot of people, talk about distributed ledger, they talk about Bitcoin or altcoins or whatever, but most people have missed the really big news flash, which was, Bitcoin wasn't just about blockchain, wasn't just about a new asset class that could appreciate, people could speculate in. It was about getting a whole bunch of independent actors to build your network. And the people doing Bitcoin mining invest around $2 billion a month in electricity and in hardware. And we might bemoan that, but it's amazing. I mean, when has that ever happened before? When has somebody built a company's network and invested their own money to do so? That's never happened. And that's because people trusted this economic game that, hey, if I do this and I buy this really fast hardware and I invest in electricity, I'll have a good chance statistically of actually mining some of these coins. And they believed in and trusted that would happen. And the result was they built this massive computer network that is the most powerful computing network on Earth and has never gone down and has never been hacked. And that had never been done before. And it was all done by a bunch of independent people that had no knowledge of one another, when they started. And they did it just because there was an economic game that they could make money from.
No, it's an incredible time, I think, to be in this space and see all the different places it's going and how it's changing people's mindset in the way that they problem solve, the way they think about assets, the way they think about different things. It's just such a wonderful time of
It is.
Of
it's going to be one of those. It's one of those kind of bellwether times in history that you'll look back on and go, wow, that was significant. And I mean, when we really, I'm talking to you on a smartphone, and the smartphone didn't exist 11 years ago.
I know.
And so we're at this point where, and yet 70% or so of the entire planet, man, woman, and child, owns one. And so it didn't exist 11 years ago. We're at this time now where things can take over and change things in our lives so quickly. It's just unprecedented.
I love the smartphone example because that is something that really did take over and change our lives. And like you said, it's only been around for 11 years. And in the very beginning, I can check my email on my phone. And now, if I don't have my phone, I don't think I can function, in a way of like, it has my schedule, it has my emails, it has your news, it has your music, it has everything that you need all in one thing. And we're so now reliant upon it. If you ask the same people 5 years ago if they could live without their cell phone, they might have said yes. And now people think no.
Yeah, and it didn't exist. Just 15 years ago, there was no such thing. There was the cell phone, but there wasn't the smartphone, and they were precursors to it. But they weren't like what we have today, which is it's kind of a mix of a telephone and a computer.
Yeah, more so computer. I feel like I use my phone more for computer stuff and for news and apps and reading than I ever talk on it.
Most people do. It actually is a lousy phone.
It's true.
It's true.
The battery life is bad.
Wired in,
I guess I ultimately use it for a camera more than anything.
Yeah. Well, that or music. That's probably the two number one apps.
Definitely. So getting back to Sweetbridge, I love that it's like a one-stop shop. You can assess your assets, you can get money for them, and then you could have a Sweetbridge wallet as well. So then you can keep your assets, money there.
Yeah. So this is when people get their hands on this, because that's just about to release. It's just weeks away. We are really putting out the world's first asset wallet, and you'll be able to put everything in it. You're not just crypto assets, but things like your house, your car, stocks and bonds, gold or precious metals you might have, commodities, your CDs, cash, all in one wallet. And then you can have one loan that you can basically set the terms on. And yes, you can set your interest rate. Remember, you can buy it down.
Mhm.
And you can set a balloon loan. You can have it be a monthly payment thing. And this smart wallet basically keeps takes any excess that you have and it pays it down every day so that you have the minimum amount of interest that you ever have to pay. And anytime you need money, it's just like having a line of credit. It just basically allows you to borrow against the value that's stuck in your assets. And by doing this, if you take an average American and you take just the excess cash they have sitting around their bank account during the course of a week, just to pay their bills or buy the food or whatever, they haven't used it, just sitting in their bank account from the time they get paid until they spend it all. And you put that money towards their mortgage while they had it, while it was excess, and then took it back when they needed it. It would pay off the average mortgage in 20 years instead of 30 years.
Wow.
That means the cost of the house is 1/3 as much as what it would be by letting it go for 30 years. And this builds wealth for people much faster. And that's a much more rational way of doing things than we do it today.
And that's game changing because think of the buying power that gives back to the buyer.
Exactly. And instead of having to arrange for a car loan to buy a car and a house loan to buy a house, and having a credit card, and all of them are different loans, all have different payment schedules, all have different interest rates. You have one interest rate, one low interest rate for everything, and just one loan. And when you just go buy a car, you just buy it with your phone.
That'd be great.
The value in the car and the value in the other assets you have to do it. And you do the same thing if you want to take a vacation. Instead of running up your credit card and then taking a couple months to maybe pay it down, you just draw from your assets, and you don't have this 18 or 22 or 25% interest rate that you have to pay on your credit card. You have a much lower interest rate. That's what you pay on everything.
No, that sounds very simple and very easy to use. You said this is coming out.
Well, that's
soon,
our goal.
Right?
That's our goal.
That's your
goal.
Simple.
Yep.
So
That's our goal.
Tell us a little bit about the crowd sale that's happening. Is that still going on?
It is. It's still going on. It's been going on by geographic region of the world that we get okay to operate in. Mm-hmm. And so we've done we're doing a very unusual sale. It's a sale where we release 30 different tranches over time, not too dissimilar, I guess, in some ways to how EOS did it, except it's based on different geographies. So our initial releases were for the UK and the Netherlands, and now we've expanded out through Europe. We just started, we'll just start this next week, our release in Russia. And we're doing it in such a way to build our customer base. So we're trying to build our customer base all over the world, wherever we're going to have customers, because our tokens are unlike any tokens that have been sold before. They have real value, not like speculative value. They have real value because if you own them, you get cash back when you buy services, whether that's crypto exchange services, or that you use it for interest, or you use it for suppliers or merchants that are going to be on the Sweetbridge network. You'll get cash back. And the amount of cash back you get is controlled entirely by the size of the network. So as the network gets bigger and bigger and bigger, the amount of cash back per token increases. And it increases basically at the rate of network growth. So if we double the network in size, then the value that you get back in cash increases. And at any time you end up with too much or you don't need it anymore, you can sell it to somebody else, and then they can use it to get it. And so you don't spend it. It's maybe the world's first token that it rewards you for hodling it. And so that's very different. People aren't used to that. And we're actually selling it right at the beginning for less than its actual discount value is over 5 years. And you can buy it right now for about $3.06. I think it's $3.12 right now. And it's worth 7 cents a month in offset in cash back per token for network services. So if you figure that out over 5 years, that'd be be 60 months times 7 cents. It's $5.20. So just in terms of what it gives you in cash back over 5 years is at current network size is that. But we're talking with big corporations, huge companies, biggest companies on earth, about adopting our system and using it as part of their both customer rewards program and also as the mechanism for providing liquidity in their own supply chain. And all we need is one, and the discount value of our Sweetcoin will go up substantially. Solid economics, is what we love about what we're doing. Solid economics.
No, it's solid. It's clear.
Yep. Yeah, it's real simple. Help us increase the size of the network, and the value of your coin will go up at the same time. So the idea was to create feedback loops that rewarded people to stay in network and rewarded people for loyalty, and but to do it, kind of like airline miles on steroids, where it expands across very wide set of goods and services that people use over time. And starts with something almost everybody needs, which are financial services, and then expands to include, restaurants and airlines and hotels and, the things people buy.
So, if people want to get involved with this, companies want to get involved, individuals want to get involved, what is the best way to go about it? Kind of walk us through that process.
Sure. So the easiest way to do it is to just go to our website, sweetbridge.com, and engage us on one of our social media channels. We've got people pretty much 24/7 around the world who are on those channels, and depending on what your interest is and what you want to do, they can connect you with the right people in our community. We're a community-run and community-led organization, so a bit like Ether is in that sense. Actually structured more like Sovereign, if you're familiar with how they work. But it is a community-led organization, entirely nonprofit. We don't make any money from any of the lending we do or any of the other things. All of the money basically gets plowed back into the people that provide the fiat. They're the ones who get the money, and we just take enough to run the network, and that money doesn't actually go to Sweetbridge itself. It goes to all of our local operating units, which are the equivalent of our miners, and that's just to pay for the computer hardware and stuff they run, to basically make the network work.
All right, so the best place to start is just to go to sweetbridge.com, and you guys you're so active on a lot of different platforms, so people can reach out in any way that really suits them.
Correct. Yeah, whatever you're comfortable with.
Oh, that's fantastic. And they can join the Alliance. And
they can.
You have a newsletter as well. Yeah.
We do. So we produce a newsletter once a month. That's going to be going up because we have a whole bunch of news. We're kind of the unflashy program. We project out there. We really don't hype or talk about stuff that isn't real. We're all very seasoned business folks, and we know the danger of getting your company overhyped before you have reality there, and how quickly the winds of positive opinion can shift on you if you don't have evidence and real stuff that you're doing. And so we're trying to do it right. We're being we work with governments, we work with regulators around the world, spent tons of time and energy trying to do that. And we're trying to work with the largest companies on earth and the smallest companies on earth in both the developed nations and developing nations. And so we have to keep a really clean profile. We have to look, we don't want to be sensational, and we don't want to promise stuff we can't do. And we want to be very clear about things. So we pretty much just talk about facts.
No, it's a great way to go about it. Well, Scott, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to speak with us here on Future Tech Podcast and share this fantastic new platform with us.
You're welcome. It's been my pleasure.
That is Scott Nelson. He is the CEO and chairman at Sweetbridge. Again, you can find them at sweetbridge.com and all over social media. Thank you all so much for tuning in. This has been Juliette Lamar with Future Tech Podcast.
You have been listening to Almost Here, Around the Corner Future Technology Podcast with Richard Jacobs. Subscribe to this podcast, post a review to discover more future technologies that are poised to transform our lives for better or worse, such as Bitcoin, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, blockchain, virtual reality, and more.